Howdy, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. It's the Ides of April, little less heralded than the preceding Ides are, but still, Ides all the same. Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, as you are sitting down to watch this. However, as Mark and I sit down to record this, as we pre-record now, it's Monday, April 14th at 2:24 p.m. on the left coast. So that lets you know where we're at in the universe as we send this missive out to you across the digital ether. I'm Trey. That's Mark. How's it going, Mark?
Good. Now that you mention it, it is a little weird that March is the only month with Ides.
Well, it's because they killed Caesar that day. But, Caesar, who now hits for all Republicans and stuff, except for the being murdered by people part. I guess they conveniently leave that part out. But yeah, no, I'm sure you probably know this, but in those days they called Ides was one of their words for how dates worked, and it was the midpoint of every moon cycle or whatever, and so that's why the Ides meant the 15th or the midpoint of the month. And Ides of March is the only one that stuck around because of old Billy Shakespeare and his whole thing.
Yeah, it's weird. You think about all the things we lost entire vocabularies once we invented electric light.
Yeah,
the moon cycle doesn't matter anymore. So we're talking about some immigration stuff in El Salvador, and then RFK Jr.'s continuing efforts to give everyone measles. Before we get to the show, I wanted to talk about a couple little fun bits from our dystopia. There was a big UFC fight on Saturday night. Donald Trump was in attendance. Shaquille O'Neal gave him a big hug. That was sweet. The title, the main fight featured Bryce Mitchell, who's a guy who says Hitler was just a patriot who loved his country, and declared he'd take a bullet and die for Donald Trump. Got his ass fucking beat and choked out in front of the president.
Yeah, no, I don't know anything about that guy. I haven't watched UFC since I was in college and shaved my chin strap beard off. And I left UFC behind me at that moment. But so I don't know who this dude is or anything about him. But it was near the top of Reddit, of course, because they were dunking on him for getting his ass whipped. And then I gathered the context through the comments and stuff that was, Hitler hits for him, ergo, so does Donald Trump. And so, I don't know anything about him, but I'm glad he got smoked.
Yeah. Here's the plot twist there, the punchline. Ted Cruz is in attendance rooting for Bryce Mitchell, I assume. So the Ted Cruz sports jinx now almost has a fatality attached to it.
Right. You should track this, Mark. You should have a spreadsheet or something for this, because it's getting kind of eerie at this point. I mean, what are we up to now? It's a lot. Ted Cruz, and it's I joke around with my friends and stuff about me. I hate to associate anything about myself with Ted Cruz, but I feel cursed sports-wise. But he's for example, I literally went to Knoxville for less than 24 hours this year, and when I was there, our quarterback left the team unexpectedly. So I came into town, that happened, I left, now they're repairing everything. But anyway, Ted Cruz, he's got a very impressive batting average with not hitting at sports events.
Yeah, I mean, he was at the NCAA basketball championship a couple weeks ago, rooting for Houston. We all know how that ended. Yep. So yeah, if you want to, I wondered how much money you could make if you just bet against every team that Ted Cruz is rooting for at a sporting event he attended. So one more thing before we get the show, I got a new guy for you, Trey. His name's Kyle. I'm going to pronounce his last name Dyke. I don't actually know how to say it. D-U-Y-C-K. He's
Doik?
running. Yeah,
Doik?
there you go.
Kyle Doik.
He's running for governor of Oregon, obviously as a Republican. He calls himself the presumptive nominee because no one else is running yet, because the election is until the end of next year. So he gave his brother a window decal for his gubernatorial campaign. And his brother punched him in the face, which he called was because of the deep state mind virus. He was being brain controlled. He got MK Ultra to punch his brother in the face for running for governor and giving him a sticker. He compared his brother to the Trump shooter in Pennsylvania. And speaking of the deep state, he seems to think the deep state is censoring his LinkedIn post. If you got the screen grab map, it shows he's not getting any notifications of LinkedIn, so obviously it's the CIA out to get him. Again, he's just some guy running for governor of Ohio and guaranteed to lose.
Ohio or Oregon? You said Oregon.
Oregon, yeah. Okay. Oregon, yeah, sorry.
So I know you already said he calls himself the presumptive nominee, and it's far off, and nobody else is even running yet. And in past eras, I wouldn't have even felt the need to ask this question, but is this one of those kooky early on candidates that's a full-blown lunatic and isn't going to go anywhere, or is this actually going to be the GOP nominee for governor in Oregon? And also I know that might be kind of a shit show in its own way because they may not have a shot or whatever, but like, is he going to be the guy?
The current governor is Democrat, obviously, because it's Oregon, but she only won by like 3 or 4% last time, and she's had some scandals. Her wife was caught up in some sort of her wife has too big of a staff or something. I don't really understand. It's one of those stupid in a Trump era, that being a scandal that the governor's wife has a little bit too much say so feels like very quaint. But anyway, who knows? But I seriously doubt he'll be the nominee. Although Dyke is from like a pretty rich, powerful family, so he could probably take this a pretty long way. I just seriously doubt the Republicans let him win. But again, who knows? So whoever he put in charge. Speaking of, this is a very window decal based campaign. The person who was in charge of securing his window decals, who he calls his custodian for campaign accounts, he says went missing in Europe. So he packed a backpack to go to Europe to track them down on some sort of like Jason Bourne mission. Like
in his head, he's Liam Neeson from the Taken. He's one of those guys. He watches the Taken movies. He's like, I could do that. I could be that guy. I also have a particular set of skills. Right? Yeah.
His campaign platform, if you're wondering, is zero tolerance for pedophiles. So
finally, somebody says it.
We got to vote on all those people who vote on some tolerance for pedophiles. Yeah,
finally, someone has the courage to put their foot down in opposition to pedophiles. What a hero.
Yeah, he's a real ideas guy. One of his other big campaign issues, he posted about this. He's talking about establishing the future robotics division of the state of Oregon with a mission to tackle forest cleanup and critical step in wildlife prevention, because he uses robots to clean up the forest to stop wildfires. But also, he's going to issue a robot to every child in foster care to protect them, I guess, from the pedophiles he's going to have zero tolerance for. So he's going to issue every child in foster care a T-1000 instead of letting gay people adopt them or whatever. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, literally let robots have kids before they let gay people have kids. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, producer Matt is back there doing his thing. It's funny you bring up Oregon because it's related to where I'm going. Y'all know before we continue here on Weekly Skews, I got my announcements to make. Come see me on the road, live and in person, doing stand-up comedy. To do that, go to TreyCrowder.com. I, funnily enough, happen to be, as you're watching this, in fact, I'm in Oregon. I'm in Eugene and Portland this week. Bunch of 10 shows in 5 days. Bought a bunch of tickets, and I appreciate it. Now we've perhaps incurred the wrath of this lunatic gubernatorial candidate you guys got up there. Hope he doesn't come out to the show and sick as robots on me. But either way, come see me in Oregon this week, and then next week Houston, Texas, and then after that a whole bunch of other places too. Also at TreyCrowder.com, there's a link to my new special Trash Daddy, which is available on YouTube. It's fun. It hits for people. Check. If you like me, you'll like it because it's me doing it. So check it out. Also, if you enjoy this program and would like to show your support, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. You go to weeklyskews.com/more, or you can just go on Patreon and search for my name, and you'll find us. Either way, it's for $5 a month to get access to 2 full-length bonus episodes. We just do episodes of the show, but we do 2 more of them, except every now and then, for a real treat, we do Q&A episodes where we take your burning questions and answer those. So if you like this show, get some more of it in your life and support it in the process by signing up on Patreon. Now, as for tonight, Mark already told you what we're going to be talking about. We got the absolute best man for the case with this new measles outbreaks, RFK Jr. It's like assigning Alex Jones to clean up America's disinformation problem, send RFK Jr. to fix a measles outbreak. We'll get into all that a little bit later, but first, the Daily Dumbass Matt graphic, please. Tonight's DD, the Supreme Court clerk who forgot the White House owns a thesaurus.
Real quick, the president of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would refer you to that.
All right, you cut it back. So, if you want to know how a republic dies, the difference between facilitate versus effectuate.
Yeah.
Is
How's a
apparently
republic die while lawyers argue over semantics in
Yes.
court, over verbiage, yes, whilst people die in the street or in the fucking Central American Azkaban, as the case may be with this guy, Mr. Abrego Garcia.
Yeah. We've created a shadow realm where no one exists, but also is imprisoned at the same time. So I want to talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia for a second. People are finally starting to make noise about this, which they should have been doing for a month, but whatever. Too late's better than never. Kilmar fled El Salvador as a teenager back in 2011. He came here to avoid being forced to join MS-13 at gunpoint. And he's now been sent back for being affiliated with MS-13. If you're wondering how fucking twisted this whole thing is, he has protected status. Once he got here, he tried to go through the process to do things the quote unquote right way, whatever anyone thinks that is. He has a work permit. He also has a wife and 3 kids who are all U.S. citizens. He lives in Maryland. He's a member of a building trades union. Has a job, pays his taxes, all this shit. And I want to emphasize his wife's a U.S. citizen thing for a second, because everyone seems to think if you marry a U.S. citizen, you're a citizen now. And that is not true. Everyone thinks that because of sitcoms and movie premises.
Mm-hmm. And 90 Day Fiance or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It in some ways makes it somewhat easier, but in reality, there's a recent Supreme Court case about this where a woman married a guy who was going through the right process, and he had to fly back to Central America to renew his visa at the embassy there because it's a process, and then he couldn't get back in the country, and they wouldn't even say why. So his wife had to file a lawsuit to be like, can you just tell me why? Went to the Supreme Court. And it turned out to be because some guy at the embassy thought he had weird tattoos. He had a tattoo of, I think, Sigmund Freud.
What's that? What does that stand for? Because a lot of this discourse centers on tattoo. That's part of the thing I said in the video I made about this. It's funny you got rednecks all around this country who would very proudly show off their badass new Grim Reaper with a flamethrower in front of the Confederate flag chest piece they just got, talking unironically about how only violent gang members get tattoos like this. Everybody knows it. You know what I mean? You can't. No normal person has tattoos like that. Yeah. Anyway, here's the shadow of death on my shoulder. But a lot of tattoo talk.
Right, that a Sigmund Freud tattoo means he's in Tren de Aragua or whatever, so he can't get back in the country. And his wife's like, but we're married, we have a constitutional right to marriage. And they're like, yes, but you don't have a right to live in America as a married person. So basically, instead of people think you marry someone that gives them U.S. citizenship, gives them rights, but in reality what it does is take away rights from the person who married them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ain't that America? Right. Is there any, I know how insane all of this is, but is there is there any basis whatsoever for that whole Sigmund Freud Tren de Aragua? Is Sigmund Freud a mascot they've adopted?
No.
Okay, I'm about to say, why would they?
Stop trying to make sense of it.
They all want to fuck their moms or something over there? They all love cigars and dicks and stuff and cocaine and saying wild shit and dreams and shit like that?
They're just evil. It's a pretext. That's it.
Right. That's all you need.
So Kilmar got stopped by ICE, picked up, and shipped to Texas, then El Salvador. And his poor wife didn't even know he was deported until she saw him on the news having his head forcibly shaved in El Salvador. Okay, the government has admitted that his deportation was a procedural error. It was a mistake.
Yeah, I kind of can't believe that part of all this. To me, that's how sad the state of everything is right now. Is the part of this I'm most genuinely shocked by is the part where they have acknowledged that this wasn't correct, that they fucked up. You know what I mean? Because it makes it even more, to use our parlance, raven, that they do admit it's fucked up, but still are not at all gonna fix it. It almost makes it worse. It makes it more of a fuck you or more in your face, because they're like, no, yeah, you're right. He did nothing wrong at all. We definitely shouldn't have done that. I mean, we're gonna let him rot there. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah. Are bad. Just lie about it all, I guess, if you're going to fucking be. I feel like for years, if governments were going to shadowy I feel like Vladimir Putin, when he defenestrates people, he disappears people all the time. he at least has the decency to lie and tell everybody that he didn't do that. You know what I mean? And of course, we all know that he did, but he's like, I would never do that. But this government's just like, yeah, we did that.
Their official position over accidentally sending a guy who everyone agrees should still be in the United States to El Salvador to be slaved to death in a gulag is po body's nerfect. All right.
Exactly. Right. Yes, exactly. They're like, what are you going to do? I said this too in the video. It's like, if you want to make a fucking autocratic ethno-state omelet, you got to crack a few, innocent marginalized eggs. And it happens. This just happens. It's like, but this ain't an egg. This is a real person. Like this. Yeah. It shouldn't happen. Because that's what a lot of the arguments are for people who they're like, look, the president of El Salvador himself said a version. He was like, if you want to liberate hundreds of millions of people, you're going to have to lock up a few regular ones or whatever. And it's like, no, you don't. You shouldn't have to. Like, I don't accept that. There's all these people who say, like, any like undertaking this large, there'll be collateral damage like this. It's just like it's just how things work. And it's like, but that's unacceptable though. Like, it's not like, I'm not okay with that. That doesn't, it's wild to me that it justifies it to so many people, but yeah, it's just ridiculous.
We could do a whole episode on Bukele's whole thing, but like, first of all, he ran as a leftist. He's governed like a right-wing dictator. He pivoted the whole economy being based on Bitcoin, even though none of his people even have banks. And now they did have an extremely high murder rate, which has come way down under his presidency. But because he like held a summit where he negotiated with gangs, and then he locked up between 1% and 2% of his entire country's population. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the idea that this is some sort of model we should follow, while his economy is collapsing. He is popular somehow because, again, when you have a murder rate of 38 per thousand, you get it down to 2 per thousand, people are going to be happy about that because there's less chance of getting murdered. But let's just say I disagree with his methods. All right.
Which is one of those things where it's like, I don't know, but there's probably people in El Salvador that are like, listen, murder was through the roof. It was insane. It was dangerous here. And he cleaned that up. And sure, maybe again, there was some collateral damage. A few innocent people went down too, but overall, it's better for everybody, and it's like it's easy to say because you just assume it ain't ever going to be you. You know what I mean? That's what it's like.
Right.
A lot of people are willing to take that risk because they're just taking it for granted. Like, if a couple innocent people got to go down to make this for the greater good thing happen, that's fine with me because I know it'll never be me. But you shouldn't assume that, especially if you're in El Salvador or hell, even in this fucking country. It could be you one day. People don't ever think about it that way.
Yeah, so Bukele was in the White House today, and he said basically Trump, before the White House press pool was escorted in, Salvadoran media filmed Trump whispering to him he needs to build 5 more prisons because they're going to start shipping Americans soon.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, there it is. But again, all the good MAGA people hear that and they're like, good. Again, don't mean me. It never means me, no matter who you are, but you should at least, this is what empathy is, imagining that it might mean you and how that would make you feel, but they don't do that anyway.
Yeah, but you mentioned, I do want to say, you mentioned how he brags about it, where Putin even has the virtue to lie about it. You want to compare this to something like Abu Ghraib. They said Abu Ghraib was embarrassing. The administration tried to cover it up.
Right.
This is anyway. So the Supreme Court decision, to quote, Caroline Leavitt said, held that the government must facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and return to the United States. The decision was unanimous. Clarence Thomas voted for this motherfucker. But at the same time, the Supreme Court said the government cannot be ordered to effectuate his return out of respect for presidential powers over foreign policy. Basically, they're saying well, we can't order the executive branch to invade El Salvador to rescue this guy.
Right.
But they're doing this busy work thing where they're saying the government can't be forced to send him back, but it can be forced to try to get him to come back somehow. But what happens if the government says it tried and didn't? What do you do then?
Exactly. That's all they have to do is just say, well, we try. Because it's they're saying, you have to try, but obviously you can't force. We're not saying that. They just be like, well, we tried. It didn't work. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess that's that. But it's everybody with a brain fucking knows that El Salvador, we're paying them to take these people and everything. All it would take is a fucking phone call if they just wanted to make it happen.
He could have got on the plane with Bukele.
Right. I mean, it's I don't know. It's willful ignorance to act like, well, they can try, but it doesn't mean they can make it happen. It's the only way they couldn't make it happen if they wanted to make it happen. The only way that would be literally true is if he is dead already or something like that. There's no way to bring him back. Otherwise, if they wanted to make it happen, they fucking could. Like, but they're just not.
Yeah, I can't really think of a political reason not to, because it's like, anyway,
Right.
they're just like slapping their dick in everyone's face to do it. But they're basically, the administration's position is that their understanding of the way they're presenting their understanding of the Supreme Court decision is if he can get if Abrego Garcia can get back to the United States, they have to let him in, but they don't have to do anything other than that. So basically, if he busts out of prison and hitchhikes to El Paso,
Right.
he's fine.
If he does what Batman did in The Dark Knight Rises and gets out of that Bane, which even, for the record, even for Batman, people were pissed off that movie skipped over how he did that. Like, there were people that were like, it just kind of doesn't make sense that he was able to do that the way that he did in that amount of time. And he's fucking Batman, and we want a guy from just a father of of a 5-year-old, husband and father from Maryland, to do some Batman shit, and then he can earn his freedom.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea here, like, just talk about how we're all dying of lawyer brain for a second. Like, Supreme Court doing all these like thought experiments about constitutional law, while like playing word games over what facilitate means, while people work to death in a slave prison. And the Supreme Court's basic position is one president wildly exceeded his authority by forgiving some student loans. A different president has barely scratched the surface of his authority by disappearing anyone he pleases without trial to a foreign gulag. And we're supposed to believe the constitutional law is as serious. And like,
tell me about it. I know. That's what I've been saying since the beginning of all this wild shit they've been doing. I was like, well, how the fuck? Why? My whole life in this country, anytime any president like Joe Biden tries to do something that will help people, like forgive student loan debt, immediately we hear some court somewhere that matters, or just the courts pop up and they're like, well, he doesn't have the power to do that. And this is, the system has checks and balances, and the president can't just do that. So I'm sorry, we can't let it happen. That's when the president tries to do something that'll help people. But this motherfucker's out here just disappearing innocent people willy-nilly for no reason. And they're like, they're like, well, who's really to say? Certainly not us. We're not. It's hazy. It could be within his purview. It's like, it's just.
Think about this.
So ridiculous.
Like all these like metaphysical thought experiments. Like think about this in terms of any other profession, right? Like certainly there are medical researchers who think about things the abstract, but if you go to a hospital with arterial bleeding, and you're like, what is the nature of blood? You're like, can I have a tourniquet? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you like? This whole thing, like you pointed out, like they're pretending like they can't make Bukele do stuff when he's their fucking employee,
right?
And like. The idea that, like, well, there's one thing whose awesome power Republican presidents respect and are powerless in the face of, it's a Central American nation's national sovereignty, where it's a fucking, they just said yesterday that they're going to seize Panama.
Right. Panama, Greenland, Canada, but this whole time we're just like, we're just going to go take it. We just fuck what the people there want or the government there wants or whatever. It's like, we're just going to manifest destiny if we want to. That's what America does. And they'll thank us for it later. But yeah, the idea that they're like, well, we can't step on El Salvador's toes. I mean,
can't even ask him for a favor. We're paying $6 million to do this.
Right.
So we're about to find out if it's legal to somehow constructively detain someone in a Rube Goldberg machine designed so they cannot file for relief, because as soon as you get somebody out of the country, there's no court has any jurisdiction anymore. It's fucking done.
Right.
Like,
so all you got to do, if somebody does some shit you don't like if this all holds up, somebody does some shit you don't like, hypothetically, you could just like point at them and call them a gang member, or they got fucking whatever criminal ties, and then ship them off to fucking, again, Central American Azkaban, or just out of the country. And then later you can be like, it turns out he wasn't a gang member, but we thought he was. And now that he's there, there's really just nothing we can do about it. Like, now that he's gotten there, our hands are tied. So unfortunately, he's going to have to, work himself to death while half naked every day for the next 30 years, or unless he expires beforehand.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, and just today, the administration snatched up a Palestinian Buddhist peace activist and another Palestinian guy who was literally in the middle of his naturalization ceremony to be a citizen when they arrested him.
Jesus.
So, by the way, they do say Kilmar's alive. Mm-hmm. They say it. So there's that. But right. I feel like your Kilmar Abrego Garcia legal filing is raising a lot of questions not answered by your actual proof of life video. Can we get a video of him holding today's newspaper,
right.
please?
Without a proof of life, it's like, dude, and I said this in the video too, it's like, you really gonna hit us with the like, oh no, he's at a farm upstate type thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, we're not fucking 6 years old without some kind of proof. This seems very shady, and you know it, right? Well, I mean, okay, since we're just on that, like, I know you have no way of knowing, but because I've seen people say it's like the only two ways this really makes any sense, but I guess there's a third, and the third is just because fuck you, that's why, which this administration does love that. I acknowledge it. But the first two are if he is already dead and they know that and they're like, we can't, we got to somehow cover that up, hope people forget and move on like they always do. Or like you said, there's no political reason not to do it. Or that they're like, well, if we bring him back, it's just going to get 10 times worse for us because he'll talk about how shitty it was or something like that would be a surprise to anybody. But which of those, like, what do you think is what if you got gun to your head, like he's probably got? What do you think the most likely scenario? Like, do you think he's dead already, or do you think they're just like, nah, fuck y'all, we don't give a shit? And
I don't even want to guess, man. I hope he's not. Like, I hope none of them are, man. I hope we fucking close this goddamn prison and get a fuck ton of these people back. They would people. Everyone's focused on Kilmar, and I get it. He's a wildly sympathetic case, but like, there's other examples too of people that are there for no reason. There's like a 19-year-old. Like, who got snatched up and sent there, even though like the ICE agents knew they had the wrong guy, and one of them told the other one and said, "Fuck it, take him anyway." Like, so. Like, Jesus
Christ. Is that the gay hairdresser kid, or is that a different? Because I saw a gay hairdresser.
This one's gay too, but it's a different guy, not the hairdresser.
Yeah.
But this is an environment, by the way, where this happened recently, where a guy that worked at the Social Security Administration was dragged out of his office by security for refusing to comply with like a DOJ effort to have 6,100 living immigrants declared dead by the Social Security system.
To stop their payments? Is that why, or?
Well, it stops them from paying taxes. They don't get Social Security.
Oh, right. Right.
This whole thing's so stupid. So, like, but if you can just click a button to declare somebody dead, dead people don't have any rights, as anyone who's tried to pay a dead relative's like credit cards and shit off knows. Like, it's very hard to do. So, like, no one's who's dead is a citizen.
Right.
So there's nothing to stop them from doing that to me and you or whoever, and they just click the dead button on your Social Security number, your passport, and fucking ship you off. How's a dead person file a lawsuit?
We talk all the time whenever it comes up about how like the stock market and all this money and wealth that trades hands. It's like it's just numbers on a spreadsheet. In reality, like it's ethereal and barely even real. And it's like people know that or think about that, but like the idea that your citizenship or who you are as a person, your identity, all that that also kind of applies. Like you said, people in the right position with the right, admin access can just click a button and delete your fucking, again, have you rendered dead or delete your social or whatever they do. And then like legally you don't exist after that. So fucking, then what happens,
I don't know. A state's never had any interest in my lifetime of, not the American state anyway, of having like a bunch of living people just declared dead. I don't know what happens after that. But anyway, maybe they fucked up by saying Abrego Garcia was alive and they could have just clicked the dead box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, sorry to do this to you again, but whatever the case is with him, what comes next with this? Like you said earlier, I can't remember if we had started yet or if we just, you were like, people actually are talking about this now. Like, it seems like it's building momentum. You'd like to, and I know it's like in this country, since in the Trump era, it's just been a deluge of bullshit after bullshit, and stuff gets lost in the shuffle all the time, stuff that would have crippled any other administration. You think that's what's going to happen here, and then he'll just be forgotten, basically, except for by a handful of people who care?
Well,
or like what?
I saw some actual Democratic politicians starting to make noise, and I've seen some people say stuff at rallies about it. But as far as official action, Richie Torres followed a law, and not a huge fan of Richie Torres for a lot of reasons we don't need to get into in this context. But in this issue, it's a good step. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland is said he's going to El Salvador to inspect the prison and try to look for Kilmar. So hopefully it turns into a big congressional delegation that takes cameras with them and stuff. But what happens if Bukele doesn't let them in? There's like I mentioned, Kilmar's a member of the Building Trades Union. They had a big national meeting where the president of the Building Trades Union gave a fucking fire and brimstone speech about how we're not blue, we're not red, but bring our fucking union brother home. So
I got a standing ovation for that too, by the way.
Yeah. So like that's it's weird that this guy who leads a MAGA-y building union has more passion to bring this immigrant home than.
Well, that's part of the strength of unions, buddy. In my opinion, you know what I mean? Yes. Like, that's part of the reason why unions are so important, is because that is above any other classification. He calls him brother in the speech you're talking about that he gets, because he's like, it is. When this union, we're all brothers. our brother's being fucked over right now. We don't stand for that type of shit. And that's, that's kind of the whole point.
Solidarity, baby.
Solidarity.
Imagine it.
Ape together strong. Ape together strong. That's the whole point of unions. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know, man. We'll see how that all plays out. I got my fingers crossed for him. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but it's very fucked up. But we got other fucked up stuff to talk about. The first honorable mention for Daily Dumbass is Gretchen Whitmer's staff for providing the perfect image to show why politicians should fire all of their consultants. Show this picture here. It's Gretchen Whitmer in the White House, or the Oval Office in particular, because she went to talk about tariffs. Is that where she was there?
I don't know what. So she's covering her face with file folders trying to keep her picture from being taken. So Whitmer, this is really one of those record scratch. You might have wondered how I got here situation.
Yep, that's me. You might be wondering how I got here. Yeah.
So she was invited to she went with the Republican state House leader or whatever to the White House to talk about, I don't know, some trade shit or whatever. She thought she was going to a private meeting with Trump, but ended up pulled into the White House for a photo op where she had to stand beside him, where he signed executive orders ordering the Justice Department to harass 2 guys, okay, who used to work for him. That's unconstitutional too. We don't have time to get into that. So then this is happening because Democrats have not figured out a way to talk about tariffs in a way that isn't milquetoast and weird. And I think it's because they're trying to say stuff that makes everybody happy, doesn't make anybody mad, and you quite honestly can't fucking do that. And you just really no need to do that in this situation. So Whitmer was asked about Trump's tariffs, and she said, quote, "I haven't looked into them. And I gotta say this, ma'am, your state borders Canada and has Detroit in it. I do not fucking believe you."
And I can't remember if this is a callback to our bonus episode or last week's episode, but ma'am, my middle school sons have looked into tariffs.
Right.
You're the
Nintendo Switch is delayed. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like you if you haven't, that's frankly a dereliction of duty. If you haven't looked into it, and I don't believe that either.
So they're trying to unions like tariffs, and I get why, right? And the point here is not that all tariffs are always bad. It's just like this is not tariffs. Basically, this is something more akin to like someone doing a naval blockade on their own economy. So you do have to talk of it in a framework of normal tariffs, and but Democrats are just go through the motion of normal politics, where like Whitmer has to be like kind of pro tariff to keep the auto unions happy, while also saying these tariffs are unreasonable to try to keep the auto executives happy. Elisa Slotkin's trying to ban Chinese cars. And so that's where you're seeing every Democratic politician pretty much a lot of them start their tariff discussion with a preamble. While I agree with the president that we need to onshore America, just shut the fuck up. You don't have to do that because none of this is going to lead to his stated goals. Right. This isn't how you do any of that. He's not doing that. He's fucking making the market go up and down so he can profit off doing short and long positions.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand why they can't just basically frame it the way you just framed it a minute ago. Like when you first started this, you were like, look, I'm not saying all tariffs are bad. I'm just saying this is stupid. And here are the reasons why this is stupid. Like this specific example, this specific scenario is bad and dumb, and here's why. Right. It's not about the concept of tariffs or whatever.
It takes a lot of boring policy homework to make any of this shit work, and this is an administration that spit out the tariff formula from ChatGPT. They're not going to fucking do that homework. Mm-hmm. So you just don't have to buy into this ruse. Let me I remember this piece from 2022 back when we were coming out of COVID supply chain bullshit, and I went and looked it up because I wanted to try to explain. Here's the question. This is a byproduct of all politicians thinking that voters are morons who can't understand or learn anything. Republicans think that's good, and Democrats think the problem has to be worked around. Right. Right. So, but people are already horrifically backlash against this tariff policy because they understand intuitively that this is stupid and chaotic and doesn't work. This is basically this tariff regime is basically if you're playing a football game. And all of a sudden, in the second quarter, the rules are changed to where now it's 3 downs to get 12 yards and field goals are worth 4 points. And everybody's trying to figure out, the coaches and players trying to figure out how the strategies change. I guess we need to pass more. People that are betting on the game trying to rejigger the over and unders. None of it's fucking makes any sense. It's not going to work, especially when the rules go back to being what they used to be in the third and fourth quarter. So right. Let me outline this supply chain issue, and you tell me if you think you can trust the Trump administration to solve this problem. Okay. This article started with an anecdote about how a company that makes gummy bears was having trouble acquiring gelatins. They couldn't make their gummy bears. The reason they're in trouble acquiring gelatin was because far fewer hogs were being slaughtered. So there's less gelatin going into the supply chain from the slaughtering of hogs. The reason fewer hogs are being slaughtered is because there's less demand for hog skin to make leather car seats. There were fewer cars being manufactured because of a shortage of microchips. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, do you trust the administration to figure that out?
No, I don't trust myself to figure that out. I got confused halfway through that.
Right.
I know for damn sure the fucking Trump administration. It's like, you said you had another example in one of our last episodes about the tariffs where it's like, through this, like the way things work in the supply chain, you get in this circular position where it's like the first step a new American factory would need to do would be to build a robot that builds its own shit that then it makes in the. It's like it doesn't, it just doesn't. It doesn't work. Like you follow every step backwards, and you're like, this is incredibly complicated, and we're probably not going to be able to figure it out. We meaning this administration, and certainly not quickly. Regardless,
it would take generations. And we're trying to do it in 2 weeks by committing economic suicide, hoping the rest of the world saves us from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so before we get to the main segment, I want to talk about some formal polling here. Here's some polling from the Cato Institute from a couple days ago. First question, America would be better off if more people worked in manufacturing. 80% of Americans agree, 20% disagree. Second question, I would be better off if I worked in a factory. 25% of Americans agree, 73% disagree.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to step on you. I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, it's basically like, we'd be better off if we had factories. I don't want to work there. You go work there. It's like...
It's always somebody else. You know what I mean? It's always like, it's never you. And if you frame it as like, what if it was you? And you're like, well, that would be bullshit. Mm-hmm. But people don't. And it's also like you were talking about in another recent episode about like Trump and how he feels about coal mines and stuff. And it's like these people like Trump or people that don't know, or more privileged people, they think like, oh, that's fulfilling for them. The dirty serfs, the peasants. Mm-hmm. It gives their life meaning to work in a factory all the time or whatever. And it's like you were saying, it's like there's nothing wrong with working in a factory, but like the idea that like that's where some people just belong, like a huge chunk of America that's just like they just should be in factories. It's also like we need people to do everything there is to be done in this country, and so many people at the top want those people to not be able to fucking live is like the main problem with it, like.
Yeah, but it's like this inherent belief in social hierarchies that like are natural and therefore you deserve to be at the bottom. Not me, you. Right. You and your children and your grandchildren deserve to stay at the bottom forever, but that's the natural order. Speaking of which, let's talk about the RFK and the horseshoe theory of eugenics, where the left and right meet, and because they believe in these social classes in a certain way.
Been waiting on eugenics to come back. I knew that was on the way.
So we're talking about the measles outbreak for a little bit. There's more than 700 measles cases reported in the United States this year. It's already passed last year's total, and it's the Ides of April. There have been cases in 23 other states besides Texas, but the vast majority of those 700, more than 540, are in Texas. 56 of those 540 patients have been hospitalized. And at least 2 deaths. I saw some word about a third one today, but definitely 2. A 6-year-old girl from Gaines County, which is the center of the outbreak, died in February, and an 8-year-old girl from the same town, Seminole, in Gaines County, died earlier this month. And a bit of bleak irony that this town's named Seminole. We're basically doing smallpox blankets to ourselves in a town named after one of the tribes from the Trail of Tears.
Christ. Yeah, that's rough. Do you know if either one of those cases or the one where it went viral at the time, the parent of one of those young girls that died from measles was like, still wouldn't admit that they were wrong, like still doubled down, and they even said like measles really is not that bad, and like this, they defended their position even after their kid had died. So it started to do the whole as a father thing, but as a father, I cannot fucking conceive of that. It's one of those things that makes me realize we're just in 2 completely different fucking universes, perception and philosophy wise, me and some of these people, because I can't imagine feeling like that after something like that happened to me.
I believe these are Mennonites, so there's a God will aspect to this that's sort of makes it make more sense. I can conceptualize.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That whole lifestyle is so alien to me that does make a pretty big difference.
So RFK, in response to all this, has said, if you're healthy, it's almost impossible to die from an infectious disease in modern times, which is not fucking true. and is medieval witch trial logic. Where like, well, if the person drowns, they weren't a witch. If you die of the disease, you weren't healthy. Therefore, you can't disprove this axiom that if you're healthy, you don't die, right?
Also, like if we even if that's true, like if you're a healthy and hale adult, all these infectious diseases, they shouldn't kill you. It's like, okay, even if that's true, if we can just not have them though, like that would be better. Like if you can, even if it's not killing people, if we could just not have to have diseases and we have a proven scientific way to do that, we still should do that, you know?
Right. Being sick doesn't hit even if you survive it, right? Which is a part of this is missing. And like I do want to say like we talk about like woo-woo stuff and how it verges up to it can easily merge with fascism, which is sort of what's happening. The Nazis were into woo-woo shit like crystals and aliens and fucking occult mythology and spells and stuff too. And there's a reason this happens but I'm not trying to I'm not saying everyone who believes in astrology a little bit or dabbles with it is a fucking fascist. My wife she sages stuff and she's done the occasional sound bath here, so I'm not here to shit on all hippies. I'm just saying that like when you take it too far, what it ends up being is like if you're sick, it's because you made the wrong choices and therefore you deserve it, right?
Right.
There's also a class element here because not everyone can afford to do the woo-woo shit or to spend time taking 47 supplements a day, right? So like there's like it's very easily turns into, well, if you're poor, you deserve to die, right? So it reminds me of like, remember when the tsunami hit Asia and the secret lady was like, the good lady who wrote The Secret was like, well, they must have been putting tsunami like vibes out in the universe.
No, I don't remember that, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like basically the RFK is telling people if you die from measles, it's because you didn't take enough cod liver oil.
Okay, but also, you said the ones that died in these measles, these are like little kids we're talking about, right? So you're talking about like, oh, if you take this instead of this, you do this, whatever. But it's like they don't even have a fucking choice. Like their parents. I mean, it's still the parents making the decision, but they're applying it to this kid that has no say in the matter, and it just makes it way more fucked up, in my opinion. If you're a grown adult and you make some of these decisions, I still think you're an idiot. But like doing it to your own child, like. Because of what you believe, even if it makes them sick or they die like that, I just can't. I just can't with that. I just can't.
Yeah, and but so this woo stuff, like I said, it turns really into like, so RFK is telling people to take cod liver oil and extra vitamin A, but so I'm not sure how much cod liver oil costs, but he's also saying that because like this county of Gainesville is a food desert, that's why kids are dying of measles because they don't have enough broccolini or whatever. But by the way, he's been, like I said, down there on the ground telling people to take vitamin A and cod liver oil. The hospitals down there are seeing kids coming in with liver failure from getting too much vitamin A, right? So heavy doses of vitamin A is a treatment for measles in some cases, but under doctor's supervision, not just by chugging cod liver oil at your house. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like I said, he said the RFK quote, "There's malnutrition in West Texas and Gaines County and the Mennonite community. The doctors that I'm talking to on the ground, the leaders in the community are reporting that the people who are getting sick are people who were, and the little girl who died, where malnutrition may have been an issue in her death." So this little girl caused her own death by, I don't know, fucking not getting enough kale or something. And by the way, the 6-year-old girl's doctors say she was healthy before she got measles. So this is all misleading and dangerous. But while we're talking about this being Mennonites, here, I'm going to play this video real quick of a congressman by the name of Ryan McKenzie from Pennsylvania, Republican.
First of all, many of these instances that are coming into our country are from illegal immigrants who have crossed the border with no checks, no actual health records, and they are bringing these diseases into our country. There is a reason why measles has started to spread in our country.
Okay. These are white Mennonites who speak German, okay? Mm-hmm. And he's saying that I guess the Mennonites should stop running kissing boos for the immigrants as they walk through town or something. I don't fucking know what he's saying here, but just
he's just lying, isn't it? I mean, they say this with all kinds of things. Everything is fucking immigrants' fault. You know what I mean? No matter how based in reality it is, like that's what they say. So this is just another version of that because people are going to hear it and be like, "Yeah, that checks out."
Right. And like Trump, who loved COVID, did everything to spread it as possible. Remember, used COVID as a pretext to shut down immigration, even though these people have one fucking pitch, one joke, one pitch, one whatever. Mm-hmm. So this guy McKenzie, by the way, he was his mom, Malou McKenzie, is a state rep, and they were the first mother-son pair to simultaneously serve in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. So it's bring your racist fail son to work day in Pennsylvania, apparently. So measles is one of the reasons measles is exploding in Texas is because of stagnant vaccine funding, and now we're doing more vaccine cuts. Measles was declared eliminated from the United States in 2000.
Right.
And this is a spread out part of West Texas where it should be harder for diseases to spread, but it's not because immunization programs nationwide have been left brittle by years of stagnant funding, and now the post-COVID cutbacks are hitting, making it worse.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of similar to the rise of fascism again or whatnot. It's like you find something that works, and it works well enough for long enough that enough people die, and you forget why you needed it or how it worked in the first place. So now you got people that are like kind of unironically in their head, they're like, measles vaccine. When's the last time you ever heard somebody getting measles? Tell me that. Right. And it's like, yeah, that's because we found the vaccine and used it for generations, but people fucking forget that. They're like, we don't need this shit. And then we get right, history repeats itself.
I feel like because of the dynamic you're describing, we're like 20 years from removing brakes from cars.
Right. Yeah.
So Texas, Trump recently cut $2 billion more from immunization programs for various diseases. RFK Jr. was asked about it in an interview over the weekend. He said he didn't know anything about it. The guy in charge of HHS is saying, vaccine cuts? What vaccine cuts? Texas, by the way, has among the lowest per capita state funding for public health in the nation, just $17 per person in 2023. Texas probably spent more per person on buying cops RPGs than fucking $17.
Guaranteed.
$17 per person on health efforts is fucking a fraction. Like
right.
To me, it's like that and education, like the two most important things government should be spending money on.
You'd think.
And by the way, at the same time, lawmakers in Texas and about 2/3 of states have introduced legislation this year that make it easier to opt out of vaccines. This is in an environment where we got updated data. I think last time I mentioned the numbers, the percentage of vaccinated kindergartners nationwide had dropped to 93.5%. As of 2023, the most recent numbers is now down to 92.7%. And you need 95% for herd immunity, so we're below that. And Gaines County, by the way, just 82% of kindergartners are vaccinated against measles. So while that fucking dipshit is blaming it on immigrants, the good citizens of Gaines County have decided for 1 in 5 of their children to not be vaccinated before they go to public kindergarten.
Okay, here's a question. Something that occurs to me, and I already said I was very ignorant about him. I don't know, but I'm just wondering here because I know that RFK Jr. he hates vaccines, and so many of all their people and their ideology is fuck vaccines and anti-science, and none of that hits for me. In this particular scenario, since you told me earlier that we're talking about Mennonites here, right? Like, has that changed for them? Meaning, like, have they always been anti-vaccine because of their overall philosophy about the modern world, or
so it's
is
actually
this new?
Historically and theologically, this is according to a religion professor I was reading up on, there is no religious teaching against immunization in Mennonite circles. There's no religious prohibition, no body of religious writing on it at all. Part of the problem is they just don't hear a lot about it, all right, which is why public efforts, outreach efforts that we've all defunded would help here, all right? But because they got to Texas in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the people that migrated here had to get vaccinated to be here. So there's kind of a cultural divide among the Mennonites, the older generation who believe in vaccines because they got them and see how well they work, and the younger ones who are vaccine hesitant.
Gonna have unfortunate impacts, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I watched an interview with an older Mennonite lady who's trying to do outreach to teach people about the benefits of vaccines and how miraculous they are, and she's getting pushback from Mennonites who are doing their own research. So basically, we got Anabaptists who are going to YouTube medical school, and guys named Jedediah not along to Joe Rogan or whatever.
Wild time we live in, buddy.
It reminds me American culture, people assimilate whether they know it or not. I remember I think I might have told this story, but my one of my suite mates, my freshman year of college, was ethnically Pakistani, devout Muslim. He's from the United Arab Emirates, and by Thanksgiving break of our first semester, he started off praying 5 times a day. He would stop in the middle of cross-country practice to pray, doing Ramadan, all that shit. And by Thanksgiving break, his prayer rug was hanging on the wall of his dorm room because it looked cool under the black light when he was high.
Hell yeah. See, that's what's up. That's what I like to hear. That's my America, goddammit.
Yeah.
One that turns people godless and makes them hit harder. That's what I like.
But what if it just made the religious psychos they made them only surrender their values instead of being community and defense of the weaker among them by getting vaccines so their kids don't die. They just got into Joe Rogan.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, that ain't it.
But as far as like us being ruled by fucking morons, RFK did a CBS interview this weekend where he said in offhand comments they got very little pushback. He said that pharmaceuticals are the third leading cause of death in the United States, which is fucking insane. If you're wondering, like the leading causes of death in the United States by far are heart disease and cancer. Then in a distant third place is accidents. Then below that, fourth is COVID, and fifth is stroke. So I assume he's pretending that a lot of the heart disease and cancer deaths are due to pharmaceuticals and just like throwing that out there, but not having any proof. Okay, but like we put just every cabinet official is like, what if you put the dumbest person who cares about this issue in charge of the issue?
Right.
And like RFK went on TV and said this the other day. I think this was at a cabinet meeting.
And we have, we have now the autism rates have gone from now most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31, from 1 in 20. So they're going up again from 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid.
It really.
Your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort.
All right, you got it back. We're going to get to the bottom of what causes autism by September.
Well,
I wonder what.
Glad they're on top of it.
Let's bookmark that if we're all
Yeah.
still alive in September and come back to it, because I bet
Right.
not.
But also,
Unless
dude, this has been said about autism for a long time now. By these vaccine people, they'll be like, "Look at the numbers now. Look when I was a kid. Nobody had autism when I was a kid. Now it's all over the place." And it's like you don't remember any kids that kind of stood out in your school when you were a kid, when you were growing up there. You don't remember anybody that was, whatever. They might have called them a little off, or they were just kind of different or something. It's like nobody had autism because it wasn't a thing, and people weren't diagnosing it, especially in like towns like mine or in rural America. It's like they understand it better. So they recognize it more now. It doesn't mean that it's actually more prevalent in terms of how it affects people. And it's like with COVID, when it's like, was it Florida or wherever, like their numbers plummeted. Like our numbers are way down for COVID cases. Like you're not fucking testing for it anymore. Like, like it's, I don't know. It's not that hard to understand, in my opinion. Like,
it's not, and like talking about like the eugenics part of this, where like I can't, like, for the life of me, I've been trying to think about why they care so deeply about specifically autism, and the best theory I can come up with is autistic kids look like they ought to be healthy and normal, but they don't, and therefore it's unfair or something, because they're not concerned about Down syndrome or heart defects or whatever. It's just like,
I think it's just, you said it's unfair. I think you might be onto something, because it's like, if you have a kid that's got Down syndrome, that's immediately recognizable, right? And it's like, so in these people's brains, it's like, well, that, that's a thing that can happen. Just like you can be born with a club foot or whatever, and this kid was born with it. But with autism, you don't see that necessarily, and then it happens later. So to them, and I'm sorry to use these terms, I just don't know how else to put it. I feel like to a lot of these people in their heads, it's like, no, this was like a healthy kid that now something has happened to. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not how that works, but maybe that's how they internalize it.
There's also like this idea baked in that being autistic is inherently bad.
That too, yep.
Which is like bullshit. That we all know a bunch of people on the spectrum who are perfectly functioning and fine and happy, functional lives. So like,
Drew does great, man. Drew Morgan, our buddy Drew, he does. he's thriving out there. No, I'm kidding, but yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of parents that have autistic kids are real pissed off about this whole narrative with these anti-vax people, because it's like you're telling me that my kid would be better off fucking dead. I'd rather my kid die. I'd rather my kid get a disease and die than be autistic. And it's like, I love my autistic child. They're great. They're a gift. It's fine. It's like, it's just a shitty way to be, just in general.
Yeah, and like there's also I think part of this the eugenics part of it, I think part of it it's baked in is autism is kind of like coded as like a suburban white disease or something for kids. You know, I think it's how people think of it, and though it's not. It's just like but how dare my kid have anything that I quote unquote wrong with him when I make six figures or something. I don't I can't figure it out. So for the record, Trey alluded to the fact that more people being diagnosed, but part of the reason you didn't see autistic people with intellectual disabilities on the street 5 decades ago was because it wasn't because they didn't exist. It's because they were sent away to institutions and their parents were told to put away pictures of them. Yeah. The right for autistic people with disabilities to not be institutionalized against their will was only granted by the Supreme Court in 1999.
Nuts, man.
It's a case called Olmstead versus LC, and would you be shocked if I told you that Clarence Thomas opposed the ruling? So, in this context, I want to throw this out there. Like, what we considered like autism wrong and bad. This sounds quacky, but there is research that autism was naturally selected because it gave some of our ancestors advantages in systemic thinking, and that's a more credible study than the ones that say vaccines cause autism.
Right. Yeah, no, me and Corey have talked about that before, and I know that's the thing. There's some people that argue it's like that they're perhaps that's the next step or whatever in human evolution, or like a version of it or something like that. And like you said, that's not very disputed, but there's more scientific rationale for that than that vaccines cause it, which, as I understand, there's essentially no scientific backing for.
When people go on TV and say it's uncouth to make fun of Elon because he's not neurotypical, it's like, how can you on one hand say that behind autism's bad, but also the world's richest man's autistic and has 14 kids and he's doing great. So like, I can't fucking just figure out your shit. And these people always say like, well, about vaccines causing autism. It's like, well, you don't see any autism among the Amish and they don't get vaccinated, going back to the Mennonites. And it's like, they always throw that canard out there. And it's like, first of all, they're just not diagnosed, but you're telling me that there's a community of people who spend their entire day doing nothing but counting eggs and framing barns, and they don't have autistic.
Yeah.
So going back to RFK being a fucking eugenicist, like the Kennedys as a clan, I know that RFK's aunt started the Special Olympics because of her experience dealing with her sister, Rosemary Kennedy. But I want to talk about Rosemary's experience of being alive for a second.
Yep.
Because they had Rosemary Joe Kennedy Sr. had Rosemary lobotomized with what was basically a butter knife because she was depressed and had seizures. They told people they did it because they thought it would be better than just being depressed and having seizures. They told people it was because she was, quote, mentally, and they used the word retarded because that was the medical definition at the time. He quoted from a biography of Joe Kennedy. "We put an instrument aside," he said. As Dr. Watts cut, Dr. Freeman asked Rosemary, for example, to recite the Lord's Prayer or sing God Bless America or to count backwards. We tried to estimate how much further to cut based upon how Rosemary responded. When she became incoherent, couldn't recite the Lord's Prayer or God Bless America anymore, they ceased cutting. So they cut until she couldn't fucking talk anymore.
Past was such a fucking nightmare, man.
Yeah.
That whole
and we're going back there as fast as we can.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're going to undo the Supreme Court ruling that says that autistic people don't have to live in institutions because they'll be like, according to RFK's logic, well, you chose to get vaccinated, therefore you chose to have autism. And then, speaking of which, the guy RFK put in charge of this study is named to solve autism and figure out whether vaccines cause it, which he's going to say yes. His name's David Greer. He's been charged with practicing medicine without a license. He gave autistic children a dangerous drug not approved for use in the United States and improperly prescribed puberty blockers because he thought that would help with autism for some reason to stop girls from growing boobs and boys' balls from dropping. His dad was a doctor his medical licenses were suspended by the 7 states where he and his son operated autism treatment centers. The 2 children they gave Lupron, which is the drug they used to lower testosterone or estrogen levels in patients with prostate cancer, endometriosis, and other diseases, along with chelation therapy, which leaches heavy metals from the blood, as in lead poisoning, because they thought that autism was caused by the mercury that they believe is in vaccines, which isn't there. Whatever. So we got a guy who was busted for practicing medicine without a license, who RFK Jr. is put in charge of getting to the bottom of what causes autism in a fake study where he's going to say it's vaccines. And I was remember the kid who was a viral news story. He pretended to be a gynecologist and was given free exams in a van, even though he was only 20 years old, and he fooled a lot of people. We've put the equivalent of that guy in charge of vaccines.
Yeah. It's like you said earlier, it's almost like they're chosen from a comical perspective to be the worst possible person you could choose for any of these positions. That seems to be the criteria. The guys, that motherfucker walk out there with a plague mask on before. Actually, that would almost be reassuring if someone was taking it that seriously. But yeah, it's just some real quackery going on, and that is the order of the day. All right, well, hope we don't get measles and die. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. A reminder, go to TreyCrowder.com. Check out my upcoming tour dates. Come and see me. I'm going everywhere this year, so I'll see you there, everywhere in this country. Well, the only country that matters. Anyway, come see me. Also on TreyCrowder.com, there's a link to my new special, Trash Daddy, so give that a gander. And support the show on Patreon, weeklyskews.com/more. Or sign up or go to Patreon and search for my name. $5 a month, 2 full-length bonus episodes. You know you want it, so go get it. Support the show. Get some more Skews in your life. Either way, if you keep watching on Tuesdays, we'll keep making them, and we'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.
Skew.